Hey, Kevin, welcome back to the show. Give us a little
Thank
update
you.
on yourself.
We have been learning. We have been learning what works and doesn't work in our market and taking the time to really figure out what is the right customer for us. Our niche is government contracts, and having the right type of customer that appreciates our lockouts, that really understands what we specifically do has been challenge. We'll say it that way over the last 10 years. And I feel like we really broke the mold, and I created a process that we've been using that's really working well. So things are much better this year.
What were you doing wrong before? Was it too broad or?
It was too broad. It was a lot of not believing the data, not taking the time to look at the data. And for example, one of the things I would swear, hand to God, that the contracting officer podcast is how people found us. Like that's what they had to listen to become a customer. Turns out, after looking at the data, and what I mean by that, we looked at 60 of the customers that I closed in the last year. So not giant numbers, but like enough that I can remember 60 people, right? And I looked through there and saw that while some of them had listened to the podcast, it wasn't the point that they used to come to us. It wasn't the lead source. It was a validator along with our testimonials and other stuff. But when I looked at that and realized, okay, I'm talking about the wrong stuff if I think they're all coming from there. So that was one example. And then the other one was just being too broad, is
Yeah.
not accepting the fact that we can help companies that are small. But when I looked at the 60 companies, 55 out of 60
Yeah.
had 5 or more employees. And to me, that meant they'd been in business for a while. They have some background. They understand the value that we bring. And while the people that have 2 employees, they want our help, and I know we can help them, they're they're harder to sell. They're harder to help them understand what we can do. They don't stay as long. They don't know how to use us. They don't have time to use us. They're still a micro business.
Yeah.
So it was an emotional event to go, you know what? I can help them, but like you've said before, it's not what they should think. It's what they do think.
Yeah.
So it was very cathartic to go through and look at all these different metrics and to really understand things like having to think through what are the things that I think they're going to care about
Yeah.
versus the things that they actually care about. And that was very helpful to go through the process.
And I think that is almost ubiquitous with salespeople and entrepreneurs as they go too broad.
Oh yeah, I mean, you get married to this idea of abundance, right? You look on your 12,000 LinkedIn profiles and go, "There's got to be 5,000 customers in there," but there might be 50 perfect customers. But
Right. And how
you got to
many
look for them.
customers do you need to blow your number out?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, for us, 60 new customers in the last year is a huge year. And it's for some people it might be 600, for some people it might be six. So it makes a difference.
Well, that's it. And I think what you hear all the time is three times your pipeline. Well, you really only want to work on stuff that can and will close. You just don't want to
Yeah.
be busy.
Yeah, I remember. I know you said it. I don't know where it would have been here or one of your courses, but if you're looking at your pipeline like a checklist, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And as soon as I felt myself doing that, I can hear you in the back of my head. It's like, oh yeah, I'm still doing this checklist thing because it's human nature. It's like I can just knock this out and it'll turn into
Right.
money. No,
Because, it, I mean, especially with your business, it's a relationship oriented business.
correct.
You're not a website. There's no, canned product. You guys, it's a service, consulting, helping them. You have to build up that trust.
Correct.
You
Yeah,
know,
and in fact, when I went through the exercise of what's the problem we solve, well, the problem we solve is helping them see behind the black box, is understand
yeah,
what is the government thinking, right? That was the problem we solved. But what they're looking for, again, this is all part of the targeting. I figured out what they're looking for. They want a relationship with us. They want to be able to pick up the phone and when Joe, our customer, calls and he calls Shelly and Shelly knows who he is. That's what they really wanted. And that took some customer engagement and just listening to them. And then once we figured out, you're right, it's so much more of a relationship sale as opposed to, yeah, we can solve your problem. Well, how do I know you can? Well, because you know us. You've gotten to know us.
yeah,
And that's not an overnight sale. So it's
Eh,
been an
right.
adventure.
It's like, why do you go to the same barber or the same server at a restaurant? It's because they know you.
Right.
And the expectation is known and understood, that craving to be understood as a human being.
Yeah. And the relationship is where that starts. And I didn't see that coming, when I was doing this years ago.
So, what did last year look like for you, and what were the big takeaways you had?
So yeah, the biggest takeaway was the less is more strategy. The whole idea that, and I started in B2C sales. Like my very first job when I was a kid was selling newspaper subscriptions door to door, which is a B2C sale. And then I sold back in the 90s when telemarketing was a thing. I literally did telemarketing, sold magazine subscriptions. So to me, sales was B2C. And then when I got into, I was in college actually selling a cookbooks door to door with businesses. And it was more of, it was a kind of a mixed one because you're selling it to the idea to the business to leave the cookbook there so their customers would buy it. And it was the first time I got used to this complex sale thing. Well, fast forward now, and I'd forgotten how much of the business sale and the technical sale, like the complex part. Last year, we were treating a lot of these sales like B2C.
Yeah.
Like which is crazy. I mean, I've been in business for 9 years. How have I not learned this yet? Right. But it's habit. It's like you get in there and you realize, I know I can help you. You should see it. It's not about what they should see. It's about what they do see. Right.
What they
And
do
once you
see.
understand exactly what they don't see, and to be able to help them understand, this is not why you should care. This is what you care about. And I'm going to come to the conversation from that angle.
Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest change from last year because I was just, and again, we were getting business. I mean, we still grew 25% from 18 to 19. And then, but 19 to 20 was probably a 40% jump. And it was better customers who like working with us and we like working with them. It's just, it's a shift in value over volume.
Because certainly in the services side, better customers matter
Yes, absolutely.
because
And as
the bad customers can just eat up your energy.
they eat up your energy, and as a leader of the business, I'm trying to recruit great team members. Like we've got 12 former contracting officers. They can work anywhere. Well, if our customers are jerks, they're not going to hang around for long, right? Whereas our customers really get them and they're fun to work with, and one of our core values is solving customers' unique puzzles. That's one of the promises I make to our team. Well, if we have the wrong customers who just want us to do like yet another GSA contract, that's a commoditized service. You can Google that. You'll find somebody to do it for you. But how to use that schedule and how to talk to the government to make sure they use yours, that's a different conversation. And that's the part that makes the work interesting, which, yeah, it goes back to the relationship piece.
And the hard part of selling your service is that people don't know they need it until they need it.
Correct. Yes. The
But
first 5 years of Skyway was just me throwing darts, going, you should get this, you should get this, you should get it. Didn't matter. Nobody really done it like we did, have done it before. And so they're like, well, I'll call you when I need you.
right.
And
It's
when the
too
house is on
late.
fire, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, I can't help you now.
Yeah. You can't get car insurance after you've been in a car wreck.
Exactly. Yeah. You live in Florida. You can't, when you buy the house, you can't buy the hurricane insurance that's going to apply today. It's still going to wait like 2 months or something until hurricane season's over because they don't want you buying the insurance when a storm's on the way. So it's the same mindset.
And so many services are like that.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and it's
true.
hard to get people to think ahead because we're mammals and we live in the moment. As long as we're alive, we're somewhat content.
Somewhat content. Yeah, it's true.
What other things did you pick up over the years?
So a really big one we figured out this year is this idea of a flywheel for our marketing and our sales and our prospecting. And so we used to do the traditional, well, this is the kind of companies we're looking for. So Amber runs our marketing. So Amber would find these kind of companies and then we'd prospect them and qualify them. And then we get them onto the sales funnel and then we put the deal together and then we pass them off to the delivery team. Like it was a line. Well,
Yeah.
we finally figured out it's a feedback loop, right? And so this data or these data points that I was able to tell, this is who's actually coming in, this is who's staying. I feed that back to Amber. Amber then now the content we create for our podcast is targeted to people who have 5 or more employees. I mean, our niche is government contractors, as in they already have a prime or subcontract, and they have 5 or more employees. And here's the fun part: they have between 5 and 100 employees, or over 1,000. There's this big gulf for some reason between 100 and 1,000. I think it's because they're looking around going, we got 300 people here. Somebody knows this stuff. So they don't bother working with us.
Yeah.
Whereas by the time you got over 1,000 employees, you're looking around going, okay, nobody knows this stuff on our company. We got to get your help. Right.
Right.
But I wouldn't have figured that out unless I looked at the data. And by feeding that back into the process, now we have better marketing, we have better prospecting, we have better people that we're talking to. They appreciate what we have to say, they listen to our stuff. And of course, they become customers and they stay longer. So that flywheel, which now it's obvious, but in
Well,
2015, I was doing it wrong.
I think certainly marketing has been campaign oriented, and then sales is quarterly or yearly oriented, got a quota.
True. Yeah.
But what we really want to be is building assets and getting compounding, that
Correct.
flywheel effect, that once you get that wheel moving, that the energy to keep it moving is not that hard.
Right. Now that seems easy in retrospect, that it's so
And
much clearer.
and if people are reps out there, they go, well, I don't know what that means. It's like I get my territory, I get my leads, I get my prospect list, I do the best I can. The problem with that is, okay, the next year you start over like somebody etch a scratch. Somebody shake the screen and it's now blank again.
Yeah, starting all over again.
But and part of that you can't avoid, right? Because you do get a new comp plan, new territory, but your skill set, your map to money, your process,
Hmm.
your system, and your assets. Those assets about how do you approach a client? What is your presentation? What are your questions? How do you keep direction, momentum, and control with a deal? Those are assets. And people don't think that way. We think like MacGyver, right? It's like, drop us out of the helicopter, we'll figure out how to get home.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of looking at the 60 customers I closed in this territory are going to look a lot like the 60 customers I'm going to close in this territory. And that compounding knowledge, and you got to write it down. You got to make a map of it, and you got to keep going back to it because it just filters out of your head.
Yeah. And then even though, the two guy shop calls in, well, you can hear them out, but if it's a stretch, spend your energy on the 5 to 6 person company that's going to be a match.
Well, and what the best part we figured out is that, and this is a good marketing ploy, when you get an inbound lead that is too small and you can't help them yet, then in our case, a lead comes like that, I'll talk to them because as a president of the company, I want to learn about them, how they found us, what they're looking for,
Yeah.
because that's great marketing content. But for the sales team to talk to them, it's not a good use of their time. But to be able to tell the difference and then feed that information back to marketing. So marketing we're bringing some value to marketing, which creates a bit more of a symbiotic relationship versus them just throwing us leads.
And, as an entrepreneur in the service space, how did you get out of the lifestyle trap? Meaning that it's just you, it's just the Kevin show.
Oh, that's funny. That was one of my ideas. The very first time I sat down, I think in 2011, when I came up with this idea for the business, a buddy of mine asked me that question. He said, "Do you want it to be the Kevin Show, or do you want to run an actual organization?" And I decided I want to lead a team. I want to change the world. I mean, I quit my government job with a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, to make government contracting better. I mean, that's not commitment. I don't know what is, right? And so the idea was, I can't change the world by myself. And so training a sales team and creating a marketing team and learning how to the number of salespeople that came and went because they were. I wish I'd have known. I wish I'd met you 5 years earlier. I didn't realize they were still using B2C strategies. They were trying to sell government contractors using. If I just like this, if I just keep calling them, they'll buy something. No, they'll just block your phone number and move on, right? And it was frustrating. And so once I figured out what a good B2B salesperson looks like, which I've had to create them to some extent, but a lot of it is just the perspective of what are you trying to get done?
Yeah.
And getting out of I knew that I did not want to be the Kevin show, mostly because I'm not the smartest person in government contracting. I mean, we've got Shelly's on our team. She was my trainer, back when I started. So she knows more about contracting than I do. So giving our customers access to all those people was huge for me.
Yeah.
And that whole mindset of I can't do this myself. And so processes and maps to money and all that kind of stuff was a huge ability to hand it off to somebody else.
And what have you looked for in salespeople now?
The biggest thing is curiosity. I
Yeah.
mean, they gotta they want to learn new stuff. In fact, the expectations of the Skyway sales team, we do this every week, right? It's you want to learn something, and you're going to record your calls, not so I can listen to them and say gotcha, so you can listen to them and go, oh wow, I did talk 60% of the time, that, or I did talk over them, that kind of stuff. And then the biggest part to me is that keeping up with pipe drive is that just the ability, actually it's not even ability, it's choice to keep up with your data. is do those small things. You know, it's that rule about the most successful people do the small things consistently.
Yeah.
And so I'd say curiosity and consistency, and then just wanting to learn stuff would be the big differences for me.
And curiosity keeps coming up because it's kind of like the first step to that outward mindset.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because if you're not curious, you tend to fall into I know it all,
Exactly.
which is the B player trap. And only that person can let them out of that trap.
Yeah.
Nobody could pull them out of that.
Well, and the nice thing about curiosity is they realize this is a profession you will never master.
Right.
And
I mean,
that's why it's fun. That's why we stay in it.
right. Well, can you master parenting? Can you master friendship? Can you master relationships of any kind?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. There's no end. It's a process.
Yeah, and it's the curiosity to ask, how can I get better at this? What
Yeah.
can I study to learn more about it, and what can I look that I'm doing that's making it worse or better?
But yeah, because curiosity then creates that interest. That interest turns into passion and wanting to do it. So it's
Right.
kind of that first roll of the snowball that starts the process going. If if you assume that you know it all, or you try and have confirmation bias about it, you fit it into some square in your brain that you already have, you're missing the point. The point is to think about it, not to pattern match it.
Right. And then not say this looks exactly like the last one. It's like they're people are unique.
Yeah.
You can 80% of the deal might already be understood, but it's still a unique company. It's a unique person. It's the unique perspective on what they think you do. I mean, that's the curiosity part is you got to be curious of what does this customer want? It might be the same exact thing, but they're coming at it from a different angle, or you're going to use a different word. You got to, using the Chris Voss concept, you got to deframe how they're looking at it.
Yes. Yeah. And that deframing is selling,
Right.
because if the frame was to buy, they call you.
They do it on the website. They wouldn't even call me at all.
Yeah. So they're comfortable now and they don't know why they need you, especially in your market. You've got to get that. You got to be curious about what they're facing and get them curious about what could go wrong.
Correct.
Because calling you once it goes wrong, you know, you're a hairdresser, not a magician, right? It's like
There you go.
you can't make you look like Brad Pitt now.
Yeah, exactly. It's too late. You got to start training for that a long time ago.
Right. You've got to, set up your bid before it's awarded. Once you lose it to the competition, there's no going back.
Yeah. And it starts with things like targeting the right agencies and understanding what you can actually do. We talk about what's your weight class? Like what can you actually do as a company that even if you won this thing, it'd be a train wreck for you. Or when you present yourself as, hey, I can move mountains. And they're like, you have a hammer in your hand. Really? It's
Yeah.
like that frustration is very easy to see because we used to buy. We understand it from the government side.
And a lot of people look at curiosity as putting themselves in a lower social standing as opposed to a peer standing. Like if
Interesting.
I'm curious, I don't know it, that means I'm dumb. No,
Huh.
you don't know it, or you want to learn more about it. And what you're doing is putting the other person on a higher social status that makes them feel good. Because when you ask or you say, hey, I'm curious, the other person naturally wants to help you,
Right.
because you're saying, you know something I don't, and I want to learn from you,
And that's a great gateway to collaboration.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, what is selling but having a great conversation? And a great conversation is when the other person's talking.
Exactly. When you're doing more listening than
Yeah.
talking.
Because everybody wants, they got their sales ready messaging, and boy, do they want to deliver it.
Yep. That speaking of things we used to do wrong, the number of times I went in with it wasn't a huge slide deck, but it was our pitch.
And
Well, they don't care.
well, in your space, it's like it's a lot of keywords that they may not know, or they may have different meaning for,
Correct.
because you're an acronym city. right? That's the town that your market lives in.
Yep.
I sold into your market. I know what it's like. It's like
Oh, yeah.
I had to have a notebook open and a browser because I'd write it down, then Google it, write it down, then Google it, trying to keep up because you had to like translate in real time what this person is saying.
Yeah, and it gets real fun when some of the acronyms actually repeat. They mean different things in different agencies.
They do. Yeah. And so instead of working at that level, if you can get them talking about what they care about and then drill down, because they don't want to be thinking, I'm bidding the wrong thing to the wrong people because they're doing it.
Yeah, it's too late for them. Exactly. Well, it's interesting. You go back to that point of what do we learn, and that's another thing that I learned is that I used to, yeah, we didn't use the slide deck, but I would give like a states 5 minutes. If it's 2 minutes, it's still a waste of time going through what we do. The whole, who are you? Why are you here? Why should I care? Kind of thing. And now I've got it down to just a sentence. Well, we're a team of former contracting officers who do training and consulting. I can get into the details of that, but tell me what prompted your call, and that gets them moving because they know, okay, generally what I do, enough that we have context, but after that I got to shut up. And I used to give examples and tell a story. They don't care. It's like
Well, yeah, because it has the opposite effect. They drift away because they don't know what it all means to them. They go,
exactly.
yeah, check. I got the, your former procurement officers now helping clients out. Oh, okay, that's what I need.
And then they tell me, and sometimes we figure out that's part of what they need. What they actually need is somebody who's a
It,
pricer. And like, well, we do some of that, but what you need is an accountant. That's a whole different conversation.
well,
But I
yeah, I
wouldn't
mean,
have gotten there unless I asked.
yeah, they need to know what's going to happen if they do this. How can they best win this procurement?
Right.
And
Yeah,
and that
that's what they're looking for.
yeah, the same way, an accountant would help you prevent an audit. A lawyer would help you prevent getting in the legal obstacles.
Exactly.
We can all write a contract. We can all download LegalZoom thing. We can all open up TurboTax. But when there's millions of dollars at stake, you might want a second opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
You don't want to find out you did it wrong afterwards.
Yeah. And I used to use the tour guide thing. Well, is there been any country you ever like to visit? Oh, sure. What is it? Oh, Brazil. Now, would you like to have a tour guide when you're there? Not all the time, but like maybe on Saturday between 1 and 4. Of course. Why? Because you don't want to get lost. You want to see the best of the best and avoid the worst of the worst.
Exactly.
Well, what do you wish you'd done differently a couple of years ago?
Targeted sooner. It's a big part of it. And honestly, listen more. That's probably another characteristic that when you asked before about looking for salespeople, the ability to listen. And in so many ways. I mean, not only listen to the customer, listen to the prospect, but listen to what the results are telling you. And we have a saying on our team: success leaves clues. What's working? As I got this out of, I think it was in Jason Fried's book Rework, where he said, find out what works, do more of that. The simplicity of that is just really clear. But so much of that comes from listening to what's actually happening. It's going to be listening to what's going on in the market, listening to what the customers are actually telling you. Like your whole covert, they're overtly positive or covertly negative. Listen to that stuff. You got to write it down and say, is this actually the result I think it's going to generate? Probably not. So I need to move on.
Yeah. Because what I'm seeing, when I'm talking to like a lot of people at sales kickoffs now is, what's your close rate after a proposal goes in? It's forecasted. The end of the quarter comes. How much of it closes? And almost everybody, it's less than 50%. And those are
Wow.
the best of the best deals. Those aren't, your leads that convert. Those are ones you invested your time and precious energy and money on, and only less than 50. Some even down to like 30%. Now, what does that
Wow.
mean? That means like 70% of your time is
You're
wasted.
wasting it. Yeah. Ouch. That's painful to think about.
maybe it'll close later and probably will, and that's not all your time. You also spent time prospecting, you spent time
Right.
in meetings, you spent time planning. So what if you were hyper focused? That focus is the power.
Yeah. You're back to the 80-20 rule. Is
Yeah.
that you did an episode about that, and it was interesting to just hear it reiterated, and you look for it and you see, well, this 80%, in some cases it's 73%. It's a majority. So you can actually see they'll pop off the page when you start to look at the data and realize, yeah, this is the one, these are the ones I should focus on. And while the other ones might close and I know we can help them, it's taken longer for them to get there.
And it's not a binary, do I work on it or not? It's just a priority thing.
Yes, well said.
And I think it's like even with Price's Law, because I'm finding it even on my YouTube channel. I've got like 3 videos that generate, more than half of my views.
Wow.
I mean, I'm talking about with 3,000 videos,
Yeah,
right?
wow, that's amazing.
And but that happens in our customer base too.
Yep.
Out of those 60, there's probably 5 that generate the lion's share of the revenue.
Yep, more than half of the revenue.
There you go.
I can tell you I can tell you who they are off the top of my head.
And again, it's not that you don't work on the other ones, but those you give the extra love to.
Well, and you also build more relationships with them, and you can expand that deal to be even bigger, and you can build relationships with their team, so you can get more referrals. You can find more customers like them. But again, you have to look at the data and say, what is it actually telling me? And the surprise to me is it told me a lot of things that I was wrong about because I thought X and it's actually Y.
Yeah. And we want to believe that because we get comfortable being busy with a big full CRM.
Yeah, there you go. Being comfortable being busy. That's a scary concept.
That's a very scary concept. What we should do is be uncomfortable being focused,
Yeah.
on those, those 5 deals or whatever it is in your territory before you get to the other 95. Instead of, I think the part of the problem is you go in the morning and you see this huge list. The huge list gives you a little bit of comfort, but how many of those are going to close?
Yeah. Yeah. Abundance can be it's a double-edged sword
Yeah.
because you know there are more out there, but you can't chase them all. So
Right.
you have to find a way.
Right. You got to find that perfect match for you and what is worth your time.
Yeah. Who can you actually help the best? And then who's going to see it? Because they're not the same thing.
Cool, Kevin. Hey, appreciate your time today. What message would you like to share with people? Are you looking for people? Are you looking for clients?
Yeah, if you're a government contractor with 5 or more employees, check us out. You see the bridge behind me? That's the Skyway Bridge. We're named after the Skyway Bridge here in Tampa. So Skyway Acquisitions, the company. And I mean, honestly, the big thing I'd like to share for folks who are trying to generate business, listen, it's hard. Most people don't do it. I didn't do it enough. And target ruthlessly, uncomfortably, and you'll find customers that you really like working with. That's my big lesson that I learned in the last year.